as a kind of introspective, I decided to put here some glimpses of different presentations I delivered recently. And you see the topics. So I talked about music, specifically about what Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff did for this world. I talked about architecture, specifically about Finnish architect Alvar Aalto and how he influenced the present-day Japanese architecture. I talked about sculpture and my friend Kintaro Sato sensei, who creates an amazing works of art. Some of them you even can see in Aizu Wakamatsu City. And of course, I talked about these nice figurines. I took some examples from our collection. These pretty ladies accompany me today for this speech, and they will help me to explain you why, in fact, we have all them today. And the general idea is somehow to find ways to invite people to go from their pixel forest. This is a nice installation of Swiss artist Ripilotti Rist installed in Zurich Museum of Art. And the name is Pixel Forests. Our students are, not all, but many are in this pixel forest, are too much inside the technology. And sometimes this pixel forest is very beautiful, but still we need to know what happens in real world around us. As it often happens, at least in my own life, some projects, they originate from kind of unusual personal experience. And this project about porcelain figurines started from an experience of organizing the exhibition here at the University of Aizu. A year ago, we organized an exhibition of vintage figurines from the private collections, most of them produced by the famous English pottery called Royal Dalton. And this experience created for us some completely a new domain of interaction with people. Of course, people just came to see beautiful things like this, and they liked, of course, very much. But we realized that we can somehow connect this artistic experience with technology experience. So the project started a year ago, exactly in the same season as now. So these are the photographs a year ago, but now we can appreciate the same cherry blossom season in Aizu Wakamatsu, and it complements so well the beauty of these objects we have with us today. The figurines themselves, they of course, first, they are quite precious. Most of them produced between 60 to 80 years ago. So they are old. You see that they look like very young, but they are quite aged. And we can, of course, just enjoy their beauty, but we also can learn much from them. Not only the traditions, the huge traditions of English pottery, but also how, in fact, the regular life of people changed. With the help of these figurines, we can see how the fashion changed. So here on this slide, you can see a page from a 19th century fashion magazine published in Paris. And at the same time, we see a figurine produced in mid-20th century. But most of them, they really were not the clothes from the 20th century, but from the early epoch. So we can learn this. We can learn how dramatic costumes changed. Here you see a couple of pages from a mid-19th century book about theater costumes. And we can see how, in fact, the costumes are being developed. That's exciting, very interesting area connecting theaters and real life. But also we can learn the ceramics and pottery production in general. And if we start saying about Royal Dalton, so Royal Dalton items created, pottery items created to support architectural projects. So it exists since around 1815, so more than 200 years ago. Not the oldest one, but quite renowned and very famous. In 1887, Royal Dalton, at that time just Dalton, they donated a number of artifacts to the St. Alban English Church, constructed in Copenhagen, Denmark. And one of driving forces of this project was the future Empress of England, wife Alexandra, wife of Prince, who later became King Edward VII. And to appreciate the contribution of Royal Dalton to the interiors of this church, Edward VII gave them, so awarded them with this royal warrant. And since that time, the company started being known as Royal Dalton. Dear audience on Zoom, please mute your mics. The production of this series started in 1913, so already 100 years ago, and the name of the series is Pretty Ladies, because mostly it portrays really like ladies in beautiful dresses. Some of them even have personal names, but many of them, they do not have personal names. Some of them have kind of concept names. For example, so not personal name, but just idea, the concept. And this one, for example, is Easter Day. We are now in Easter season, according to West. We are in Japan. And of course, it would be quite interesting to explore what are the connections between different cultures and in the domain of ceramics between English culture and Japanese culture. Actually, there are many links. People often don't know. But for example, this pattern called Willow pattern and portraying very sad story like Romeo and Juliet story, close to that story, but Chinese. Nowadays, this pattern is appreciated by many as a classical Japanese pattern because one Japanese pottery called Nikko pottery. Since around 100 years ago, they started producing tableware with this pattern. But the pattern was created by Thomas Minton in Staffordshire, England, 300 years ago. So it came from England. This Chinese picture came from English pottery, not from Asia, but became a flagship design by Nikko company. First potteries in Mashiko town, nowadays very famous for high-level pottery objects, were created by British guys who arrived to Japan 100 years ago. And nowadays it is an amazing place where you can see both products from European artists and from Japanese artists who somehow create very fine porcelain things, very much in tradition of Western porcelain. For example, like Misa, with an amazing range of very thin pottery objects. It is not in Aizu, but not very far. It is closer than Tokyo, just on halfway maybe on Tokyo. That's one interesting place to discover, like famous pottery region called Mashiko. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, but of course, these figurines, they are very fragile. I have here one example. Very beautiful thing. The name is Grandmother's Dress. And we can imagine the story immediately. But she's broken. But because of this breakage, you can see how thin they are. It is very easy to break. For different reasons, transportation, bad handling, it happens sometimes. At once, it happened with this beautiful lady, who, unlike to this lady, was broken into several pieces very heavily. But the figurine itself was so beautiful that I decided to transform the case to a personal experience. Of course, that was a kind of step to terra incognita, like kind of to try to do something I never did before. And because of this thin porcelain, just to repair, it is already a challenge, but the repair must have some meaning, not just to take a glue and to assemble the pictures, but to do it with some meaning. And because of these creative guys, Rintaro, Aladdin, and John, we arrived to the idea to use our computer-based expertise to help these fine figurines reborn. Fortunately, in Japan, we have one important source of knowledge, and the source of knowledge is Kintsugi. Kintsugi is a Japanese art and craft of visual repair. So the idea of Kintsugi means to link with gold. The idea is not to hide the fact of repair, but to make emphasis and to make maybe the repaired thing even more beautiful than the original thing. And Kintsugi as a craft comes from the general idea of wabi-sabi. Nothing is perfect, nothing is finished, and nothing lasts forever. And Kintsugi combines repair technique with a kind of philosophy and art of living. And so, of course, we took this look to Kintsugi. But just to do Kintsugi is very challenging. So someone who wants to try needs a kind of education, kind of training sessions, kind of additional knowledge. And we created workflow fused with present-day technology. So because it was risky to try to repair in direct way because of no skills. So we used modeling and training workflow. First, we scanned the parts with high precision 3D scanning devices. Then we created digital copies in order to have as many training attempts as you like. As a kind of side effect, we also received an environment for virtualization of Kintsugi, just for educational purposes, just to simulate the process and to see what can happen. And I will try to say maybe a little bit in more details. So to scan the parts, it is already a challenge because some of them are quite small. And we really need to get very high quality scan just to have copies which are very close to the original parts. Then, in order to make them printable, we still need a lot of work in 3D modeling environment just to get contiguous spaces that can be printed with using the special this printing substance. And preparation for printing also takes much time and effort because we need to create kind of scaffolding in order to print the shapes of like small shapes, which are quite complicated. And like designing these scaffoldings, it is already like a process. As an effect, so I took some parts. These are examples of some printed parts, which are copies of what was broken. And because of this part, I could safely try to create something like this, which is already Kintsugi, but where I assembled a digitally fabricated part. After several tries, I arrived at the idea, well, maybe one day I can. And I can be prepared to Reborn, the beauty. And finally, after a few months, in fact, all this took few months, not few days. And this broken thing now was reborn. And now you can see, like, in fact, this many visible repair with a set of special substance with real gold. And now we're waiting with golden hair to receive golden lights. And of course, like it made people happy. And we try to share our happiness with different people, because for us, the easiest way to share things is to talk. So we presented this project with different perspectives, a more cultural perspective, more technology perspective in different conferences, and I'm happy also to talk here. And we met exciting people. For example, Satoko Yamada-san. Satoko Yamada-san herself is a porcelain designer and kimono dressing designer. And I visited her once in Nagoya and talked to her. But before this, I met her in the conference in Kyoto when she demonstrated the process of putting kimono on a woman. This is a very complicated process. And she was so excited by this like porcelain lady, and then invited me to her studio, and we talked like the whole day together about different things, and about wabi-sabi, porcelain, dressing, and so on. And the course of that Kyoto trip, this lady also had a chance to walk in Kyoto after being reborn, of course. So we get this like nice photo sessions in Kyoto gardens. Because the project is a kind of living thing. We created very short video. And this video in 3 minutes demonstrates the project, which took around maybe 8 months. So 8 months in just 3 minutes. Unfortunately, we haven't completely succeeded to resolve the issues with the sound, so the sound will go from my computer. I will just comment that this is a composition by Claude Debussy that I recorded on my piano, and the composition called Serenade for a Doll. Maybe the best composition to complement this. We renamed the figurine. Her original name was Pantalette. Now it is Transfigured Reminiscence. And here is the project. The exhibition organization, discovering the broken one. Discussion, what to do. So 3D scanning process, each part is generated. The largest part is easy to scan, the smallest parts are my hard to scan. Then modeling environment, creating models which is but as a side effect, creating perfect virtual models, itself. Piece of magic, virtual Kintsugi, just to understand how it works, to try to simulate, to understand how the parts fit together. Designing scenarios. So Rintaro was our highest expert in 3D model. And then the moment when the artist tries to prepare himself, part to understand the order, what next, what first, what next, how the glue behaves, how much gold must be used, because the depth was not very perfect. Step by step. So I arrived lot of adrenaline, more than every athlete, because you don't have much time actually for each connection. The time is very limited. Building with additional wall. Now relax. And then golden hour for a golden lady in our university park. Sunset and photo section. I think that, of course, there are many perspectives in this project. Purely cultural perspective, technological perspective, perspective of how people with different expertise can collaborate, and of course, how we can connect modernity to antiquity through the technology, so how we connect the distant worlds and distant times. But one of my friends, my Japanese friends, who is Japanese language teacher, she said, actually, what you did is that you connected people. And there is kanji in Japanese with a meaning, connecting people. And she sent me this kanji and said, this is what you did with your porcelain project. And in one of exhibition in Osaka, I attended last year, the famous Japanese artist who lives mostly in Germany right now, Chiharu Shota, she created a huge scale exhibition eye to eye. In her art, she uses a lot of like different materials, including connected ropes. And one of her huge projects is about connection of people, their memories, and their relationships. And I think that our project, it contributes to connecting the relationships, because we somehow revisited the family story, not my family, but family of my friend. And to like, we connected like our passion and knowledge to the passion and knowledge of other people. And then everyone who came to our exhibition also, though it was not their own experience, they were happy and see uh, how we like recreated the beauty and like reborn connection between people. Some of them already passed away. And of course, it would be completely impossible with the help of good experts and good friends who joined this project. Thank you very much.
That means that we learn lots about the culture, about the technology, modernity, and also the history. So it's kind of like a complete presentation. So we move to the Q&A session. So it's kind of like the great opportunity of our audience to engage directly to you. However, everybody with the questions just can raise your hand. Okay.
Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Said, and I am a master student in Arabic language education in Indonesia. Okay, sir. This Kintsugi is very interesting, but I see that the glue used to stick the Kintsugi is gold color. The glue is gold color. Is there a special meaning to this color, or is it trying to make it look interesting?
Good question. Actually, not necessarily, because Kintsugi art assumes using different kind of precious metals infused with this urushi oil-based lacquer. And in traditional Kintsugi, also platinum and silver can be used. Though gold may be the most natural because the name of Kintsugi contains this kin kanji, which is gold. But in the museums, or if you go to some Kintsugi shop, you can see like other metals as well. For our project, of course, using gold was the most natural because the lady had golden hairs, and really it is very visible. So using different materials and even maybe different colors, it is kind of new trend in Kintsugi art. In one of recent exhibitions, one of Japanese artists combined artificial parts, painted artificial parts, like similar like this one, with real pottery parts and created completely new things, not just repaired something, because the original idea of Kintsugi was to repair things. So some beautiful vase is broken, it is very precious, and we just wanted to repair with a meaning. But during such a repair, sometimes some parts are just missing. In our case, we have been lucky because no part was missing. So all of them are now original. But sometimes it could be like missing, like with this lady. We don't have this part at all. So I decided not to repair this because I like to have it brought. And but what is interesting, when we repair things, we could believe that we can restore the value. Of course, it is not always so. Because if you go to the antique market and say, I have such a doll, but it is broken. Of course, people say, oh, no, broken, maybe I couldn't pay like much money. Sometimes broken things are also very precious. But if you just repair it, maybe you don't add new value at all. Of course, if the thing is connected to some personal story, that's a different thing. Because when we realize this one, you can't find on the antique market the same, not broken. Not easy, quite expensive because she is old. You can, but it is not the solution because that one had some personal connections to personal story, not a new one. And so from this perspective, when you proceed with such a repair, you really create a new value. You don't restore the old value, you create a new value, new meaning. But now artists try to create completely new objects with a completely new value and new meaning, not related to the repair process. And they are experimenting with different colors and with different paints, yes. But gold is like maybe original. Sorry for the long answer.
But that's very interesting. That's kind of like I'm still also wondering why it's kind of like a gold, but that's kind of like the answer.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, for the next, yeah. So it's kind of like a very interesting with that. Okay, so please.
Thank you very much. My name is Nandira Pasir Salsabila, magister student from Indonesia. My question is, can this project, the Kintsugi project, be applied to repair historical artifacts with similar material? And if there are parts that are missing or incomplete, and finally replaced, will the historical value of the repaired artifact change?
That's a very important consideration because there is no definite answer. Because what this historical value means. If it is a personal story of some family, that's one thing. Of course, if we just substitute some missing elements with the parts created with completely synthetic new materials, of course we don't recreate the damaged object. But if you work with the very old things, like for example in Japan, there are many excavation areas of Jomon period when they discover these Jomon artifacts, where by default many are missing, or sometimes they recreate the whole items from the pieces in fact corresponding to different original items. And then during this process, we could consider like integrating some artificially produced or digitally fabricated elements just to give to people an impression how the whole thing looked like. Of course, nowadays we also can use completely simulated versions, like digitalized. But still, this touching experience, because often in the museums, you go and don't touch, don't touch, don't touch. But touching is important. Even when we have this exhibition, we kindly asked visitors not to touch the original figurines. Of course, they are fragile, but they can touch digitally fabricated artifacts and have some feelings. So maybe that could be kind of way to answer that question. For me, it was rather a unique experience. So I don't have any idea to create a business of restoring the porcelain things. I just wanted to make this Reborn. Now I'm happy. Maybe someone else can continue.
The next generation. Report from this conference. 12-3.
Or if it's very precious, is broken, I will have no chance but try to repeat again.
Sure. That's kind of like we cannot repair something to back 100% to the previous condition, but we can make
Of
it
course,
more valuable.
possible. Yes, yes. Or differently valuable.
Yes.
Even not more, but differently.
Okay. So please, the last questions.
Nice to meet you. My name is Ina. I'm from Institute Business Information and Business Development. First of all, I would like to point out I love your phrases of this. Sometimes broken things can be valuable. I think it's very touching. My question is that I know that you do not want to fix the yellow figurine, the yellow porcelain, but let's say we are going to fix that. Would this technique be possible to mend that broken porcelain?
Like in principle, yes. More in depth. So what is like the major problem? So here we need to proceed with a kind of like inversive, not immersive, but inversive scanning. So we need to recreate the part where we don't have anything to compare. And this is a little bit challenging. So it must work, but we didn't try. But what we tried while repairing this one, we had this in mind. So we could consider substituting, and we even considered substituting one part, one piece by the artificial one, just simulating the situation that we have lost. What was nice for us, we still had an actual part, and that actual part can be used for like verification that it can work. So from this perspective, we succeeded to do that, or almost succeeded, because my decision was to use all the original parts. So I decided, no, I don't want to insert some kind of like implant. But in principle, it is possible, and maybe for some objects, it can be reasonable as well. This one, for me, is important and just kind of example of thing I can demonstrate to people. And I still believe she is so beautiful that even while being broken, so it's no problem for me. But we will think again. Or as my friend John Blake says, we can at any time break another one and just no problem. But some of them which belong to my own collection, I'm too sensitive to break them. So not all of them belong to my collection.
Okay, this is it.
So,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
for your questions.
Yeah, so Evgeny.
I liked very much the questions. Thank you.